So I just moved house, and in a box, I found a great treasure, a beat up copy of the West End game Star Wars TTRPG, a breakthrough point in the tech of the hobby, and I would like to talk about it. So come with me to 1987. Star Wars is just the original trilogy, no Tim Zahn or expanded universe, no Dark Empire, and yet we were living Star Wars at the table. I am Christian, this is Crowland, we're a narrative gaming channel, and you know we don't use AI because our quality is too low. Back when gaming weekly was easy for me, so the Bronze Age, I lived this game. I spent hours poring over blasters, starships, speeder bikes, memorizing stats and modification, the E-Web. I still remember that was my fave, that cool gun. We played a lot of games, but Star Wars was a favorite that we returned to over and over. We did space crime, we gunned down Nazis, we patched together broken ships, we raided ancient vaults of billion-year-old alien technology, we hacked planetary defenses on suicide missions, and yes, we space murdered evil wizards with laser beams. It was fun. It was Star Wars, and it was one of the best rule sets, one of the most exciting there ever was, and the best example I know of rules supporting the source material, which is called ludonarrative harmony. Now, Star Wars has had a bad couple of years. Look, I saw Kylo Ren having a hissy fit too. I saw Boba Fett dancing with Tusken Raiders instead of gunning down a million bastards like everybody wanted. Star Wars, it wasn't the ugly corporate black hole of focus groups and licensing that it is now. It was still taken at face value as a really, really fun space opera. So if you're listening to this and thinking, a space admiral with pink hair, never. Forget all that. Purge that internet poison from your brain. Just think of a really fun space opera. Here's the magic though, the rules were easy to understand. Complex but with easy to get procedures, and that's why it worked. Fast, cinematic, full attention, and yet somehow it always felt like Star Wars. D6 runs on dice pools. You got 6 attributes like dexterity, strength, mechanical, blah, they're stats, you know what they are. Skills, so if you want to be a space botanist, specialize, you put dice into botany. 99% of task resolution rolls is this procedure. Look at your stat. If you've got the appropriate skill, add them up. That's how many dice you roll together. All stats are expressed in D for dice. So D3 means you roll D 3d6 every time you're using that stat or that skill. Roll them all in the total pool, add them up, and try to beat the difficulty number, rolling however many D6s are in that pool. You want to outrun the space cops, mechanical and piloting. Don't recognize an alien, knowledge, maybe technical, and biology. That's a piece of piece, mate. You want to shoot a space blaster, take your dexterity, add your blaster skill, your target number is whatever their dodge is, and if it was an easy stationary shot, it might be just 10 difficulty. Congratulations, you just learned how to play the D6 system. Character creation, 15 minutes. If you want to be a hotshot pilot, shove your dice in mechanical, starship piloting. Gunslinger, dexterity and blaster. No endless feat chains, no trap options, no consult the appendix on page 402 nonsense. You just make what you want, you play it, job done. The game uses templates, basically classes, but they're really just prearranged stats. There's no special arrogant noble perk that lets you reroll social checks or anything like that, which I think you might maybe add if there ever was a third edition. Two minds about that. These archetypes give you broad places to start from, but the freedom to build whatever oddball hero you really want. Maybe later books added some dramatic power creep, but back then it just worked. But then there's Wild Die. One of your dice is a different color. Roll a 6, it explodes. Roll it again, add that total in. Get lucky with a few 6s in a row, you're about to cut sick, mate. You're going to beat up Darth Vader, make him cry and everything. But the Wild Die isn't just about winning, it's also a complication engine, because if you roll a 1 on that Wild Die, something always goes wrong, regardless of the total. You might hit the Stormtrooper, but your blaster pack vents heat and burns your hands. Or you hack the door, but you accidentally alert the entire deck. Consequences. We just talked about those, actually. These narratively unwelcome results are great, and one of the joys of the RPG hobby. It's the reason Han Solo is always muttering, I've got a bad feeling about this. The Wild Die is the physical embodiment of the Force being a fickle mistress. Action economy. Let's talk about how a round actually feels in modern games. D20 games can be a slog. You get an attack, maybe a bonus action, and then you sit there patiently waiting. And in D6, you can do a lot in a round, but it costs you. Say you want to run across a catwalk, shoot 2 stormtroopers, and open a door switch. Go for it. But for every action you take above the first one, you lose 1 die from the roll for that turn. So if you have a 66 blaster skill, You go the catwalk action, that's your move. Shoot, that's your second move. So you're at 5 to 6. Second guy, 4 to 6. And by the time you get to the door, say you've got 5 to 6 mechanical, you're down to 2 to 6. Good luck with that door, mate. And it creates this really interesting and cinematic tension. Do you take that perfect shot with 66? Or do you want to go John Wick movie? Take 4 actions and play that remaining 3D that you've got is enough to hit the last guy. This is Ludo narrative cohesion at its peak. The rules don't tell you no, they tell you sure, but it's going to be risky. It encourages players to describe cool stunts because the system is flexible enough to handle them on the fly. Of course, there's ways to manipulate the dice pool. You can argue with the GM for a dice bonus or situational, or you can spend character points, which is an early example of hero points that we use a lot now to save your skin. There's also force points, which for non-Jedi are just luck. But with all these things, you can make going Nova work reliably at least once an encounter, and you never know when the dice will go kabloom and make you into an unstoppable badass genius. It is pretty fun. It is pretty fun. If you've never played a game with this sort of freedom, especially after the D20 slog of you get one attack a round and in 6 months of play you might get two, it's a revelation. Now, faffing about trying to remember if you need to save a reaction. It's great for niche protection. If you've put all your dice into botany, you can actually show off with that high stat in ways that feel meaningful, perhaps during some sort of botany emergency. Now, there's a few problems here. Armor. Armor is one of the god stats. Strength plus armor determines your damage resistance, your soak. Because it's a dice pool, once your defense dice outnumber the enemy's weapons damage dice, it's statistically impossible to get hurt. Some of my memories are hazy, but I recall some PCs being fairly unthreatened by AT-ATs because the mouth just wouldn't swing high enough to overcome their soak. Although, there's a good side of this. It makes fights feel a certain level of strategic because do you want to just armor up and just walk into it? Or do you want to move carefully? If PCs are up against something thick, you can actually accidentally TPK the party. And PCs can be really hard to put down if they get the right stuff, and it's pretty easy to get the right stuff. Although, now I think of it, Second Ed bought scale rules. They prevent people from working out of exterminatus bombings or headbutting Star Destroyers. Basically, quantity has a quality all its own, and the bigger the guns, the damage scales up. It's not just guns, it's everything. Combat moves fast, skill checks moves fast. One session could be a container brawl, a speeder chase, a Star Destroyer dogfight. None of it bogs down. And the Force? Same system. You got 3 basic levels of Force. You got control powers, sense powers, alter powers. Force points let Jedis do dramatic moves, just all the Jedi stuff, lifting stuff up, controlling minds. You will feel like a Jedi when you play one. And in all of this, there is a pleasing granularity. Some weapons are better for certain jobs than others. Some spaceships are better for certain jobs than others. So if poking through lists of hardware and picking the perfect tool is your jam, you're going to love this. And the source books? West End Games invented planets, species, weapons, and starships, all before there was an expanded universe. When Timothy Zahn was writing the original Thrawn trilogy, Lucasfilms literally sent him a box of West End Games source books because they were the only authority on how the galaxy worked. No wikis back then. Some of their ideas even crept into the modern canon, and they didn't make a game. They built Star Wars. And if you want to build me up, give me a like. Touch the thumb. Yes, please touch the happy thumb. And then it all went tits up. West End Games lost the license. Wizards of the Coast published a version of Star Wars to replace it, and no one likes. And poor old Star Wars D6 faded. The books went out of print, and for years, it was almost forgotten, except by us old heads who never let go. West End had been a fantastic steward for Star Wars, and they seemed like good dudes. I'm sure there's gory behind-the-scenes stories, like the fact that they reportedly went under because their parent company, an Italian shoe business, was siphoning their funds. But just from the standpoint of a gamer, just buying books from the game shop, they were legendary. The good news is that the system is still alive, as D6 Space or D6 Space Opera released into the Creative Commons. The Force becomes psychic powers, but everything else identical, same dice, same mechanics. It's free, You can download it legally from the RPG library or the D6 project. You might also want to check out HoloNet D6, who host all the Star Wars books in PDF format that you can just go and get. Whoever released D6 to the public domain, though, you did gaming a real service. Press F, guys. To pay respects, press F in the comments. D6 Space Opera is not as visually exciting as the original West End game, but only because it doesn't have the immediate Star Wars look. But don't be fooled. The system underneath is the same pure gold. But look, I am not just a fanboy. We have to talk about the Rust, and if you play it today, you are going to hit some 80s janks. The Force, being a Jedi, especially in original trilogy times, is a slog. You start weaker than a protocol droid because you have to split your dice between 3 Force skills and your regular stats. But by the time you're powerful, you're a god that breaks things in the game. It's a very 3rd edition D&D wizard, and then you start terrible, but as you progress, you're just kicking everybody's ass. So I find that Jedi work best in Jedi-only settings. And there are a few time periods like this. The Jedi handle a little bit differently then. It does have the common RPG problem that high levels get a bit unwieldy. After all, rolling 18d6 is a pain in the ass. Dex and dodge do become god stats. So does armor, of course. We talked about that. Hit points derive from strength. So egghead characters can have some real problems with survivability. Initiative is clunky and a little bit dissonant. Sometimes the game did get a bit too caught up in the simulation. You might be in the middle of a high-speed chase and someone goes, wait, what's the maneuverability rating of a swoop bike at a high altitude? And suddenly the cinematic tension evaporates, or you flip through a 200-page soft cover. I mean, that's just games, isn't it? There was a weird tension between that fast cinematic action and the literal rocket science kind of rules. But again, that's not really a Star Wars only thing. And then there's scale. And then there's scale. In the first edition, a blaster pistol and a Star Destroyer's turbo laser were on the same math scale. They fixed this in the second edition, but, it is still a bit clunky. It's a good idea, but it is a bit clunky. Trying to figure out how a snub fighter shoots a Star Destroyer, it can be tricky sometimes. But Star Wars D6 is a product of its time. It's trying to be both crunchy and a cinematic masterpiece at once. Which in a defense it pulls off 99% of the time. There was also a lot of reprinting of stats and stuff though, so you might buy 3 separate books and there's B-Wing stats in all of those books. You've already got them. But if you're a tinkerer like me, if you like to get in under the system and say, like, how can this serve my vision? You can bend D6 any way you want. I would love to do a clock plunk thing with this, actually. Rapiers and flintlocks and clockwork machines. Turn technical into something like arcana maintenance, swap out the force for magic. The scale issues, actually, also work to make things like Tarasks and dragons feel a lot more epic. There's no, my monk kicks the 10-story monster stuff. You're going to have to find smarter ways to kill a big monster. You could do any fun, fast action moving game. There is a Ghostbusters D6 game. It was fun. There was a DC Comics game I admittedly never played, but it wasn't particularly liked. There was a Xena game too. I bloody love Xena. Because this isn't just a Star Wars engine, it's a cinematic gameplay engine. I think West End was really ahead of the curve on this, guys. It felt fun and modern then. I bet it's still really fun now. Doing this video has me really, really itching to play, Again, you live in the mid-north coast in Australia, give a call. I love this game. I loved this game, and I love it still. I wish players knew about it, and I truly wish I could design in it. They've got a D6 Fantasy now. They've got a D6 Modern. Again, check out the D6 project to see what's free, that Holocron. I have run my own lusciously baroque fantasy space opera with the rules for many, many years that I would love to publish. It's been a while though, I need to go and have a look at it. But while there's been some releases in the D6 system over the last few years, I don't think it's got the audience. And that makes me sad on a personal level and a professional level. Bring back D6. Justice for D6. I think even today, it is the preeminent cinematic action adventure game. D6 is fast, simple, it's very, very fun, and it's also a great way to actually enjoy Star Wars again. But then again, I thought the Acolyte was great. If you've played D6, drop a comment with your favorite moment, because that's the thing about this game. It's the kind of system you have hell yeah moments in twice a session, and if you haven't played it, maybe it's time. The galaxy's out there, waiting for a handful of heroes and a clunky old ship. Like and subscribe, and next time we will talk about ludonarrative dissonance in a little bit more detail. Or maybe Shadow Dark, you decide. Give us a vote in the comments, and may the Force be with you. You know, you're legally forced to say that at the end of a Star Wars video. George Lucas comes around. He'd been drinking. He's got the crazy eye. He made me say it. See ya.